Could this be the reason why Caitlin Clark didn't compete in the three-point contest? Or could this be retaliation? Caitlin's not competing in the three-point contest. We're not going to grant her favorite photographer credentials to work at this event.
Finally, for the WNBA, they are getting zero participation. Headline at Fox News: Caitlin Clark declines invitation to three-point shooting contest. I wonder why. I wonder why Caitlin Clark would decline this invitation. I wonder why Caitlin Clark would decline the opportunity to elevate the WNBA. I wonder why Caitlin Clark would decline the opportunity to boost viewership on ESPN, which is the network with the unfortunate responsibility of...
I'm not going to say individual photographers, but in terms of well-known WNBA photographers, she is the most well-known of people that is their focus. And yes, obviously there is a serious focus on Caitlin Clark when it comes to Brie, and I'm not going to pretend there's not.
The WNBA refused to grant media credentials to Caitlin Clark's personal photographer for All-Star Weekend, not because of a delay, missing documents, or paperwork problems, but through a direct denial. At the same time, several other players were able to bring their own photographers and content creators into the event without any complications. That's the situation exactly as it happened, and when it's viewed alongside events from just a few days before, it becomes much harder to see it as a simple coincidence.
Clark, well, you know, the first year she was a rookie, she didn't want to do it. Last year she was obviously hurt, and this year... what's going on? Must be that she's only shooting just north of 30% from behind the arc. The answer is emphatically wrong on that. That has nothing to do with it. And here's the thing. Sabrina Ionescu is not participating this year. Yes, she has participated in the past. This year, though, she has been encountering back soreness. Oh, coincidentally, who else has had some back soreness? That's right, Caitlin Clark. Maybe she's learning from someone before her that, you know, things like this could re-injure or re-aggravate things. This is not an excuse, folks. It's just the healthier option, okay? It has nothing to do with where she's shooting, you know, what her shooting percentage is from behind the arc. I mean, how uneducated do you have to be to think that's the reason?
Just before all of this, Caitlin Clark declined an invitation to participate in the 2026 WNBA All-Star Weekend three-point contest. It wasn't an unusual decision for her. She also passed on the event in 2024 and was expected to compete the following year before an injury prevented her from doing so. Choosing not to participate wasn't some dramatic statement against the league. It was simply a decision focused on managing her health and workload during a demanding season. Sabrina Ionescu and Kayla McBride also chose not to enter the contest. Yet despite three of the league's top shooters making the same choice, only one of them appeared to face a credential-related issue in the days that followed.
What does she have to gain from participating in this meaningless event? If she wins, she will be criticized. I'm so tired of this white privilege. If she loses, she will be criticized. I told you Caitlin Clark was overrated. She always folds under pressure. Caitlin Clark has nothing to gain by participating in the three-point contest. Her participation would be a favor to the league, and maybe she would be willing to help out if she was appreciated. Maybe she would be willing to help out if she wasn't treated like she doesn't matter. Since the WNBA thinks that
many people view this situation differently because Caitlin Clark is far more than just another player participating in All-Star Weekend. Her presence has become one of the league's biggest attractions, helping drive ticket demand, television audiences, and merchandise sales. Over the past several seasons, much of the WNBA's recent growth has been closely associated with her performances and popularity. Because of that, When the photographer hired to capture her experience is denied access shortly after she declines participation in an event the league hoped she would join, it naturally raises questions for some observers. Whether the two situations are actually connected is open to interpretation, but given the timing, many people find it difficult not to notice the apparent connection between them.
At the stage where she's one of the Fever's main photographers, but she's a step ahead of that. This is a photographer with a genuine relationship with a player, and you can tell when, again, that as far as photographers are concerned, she is a very important one for the most important player in the league. It is what it is. She is one of the more important photographers around. And not just for Caitlin. Obviously, the Indiana Fever, this is earlier on, Caitlin Clark being injured, and, she's
to
there
understand why Caitlin Clark may not feel eager to go beyond her normal obligations for the league, many fans point to what they see as her treatment on the court over the past 2 seasons. Numerous incidents have sparked debate, including hard fouls, physical play, and confrontations that supporters believe have not always been handled with the same level of scrutiny given to similar situations involving other star players. Videos of these moments have circulated widely, fueling discussions about officiating consistency and player protection. Critics argue that Clark has often been on the receiving end of especially physical treatment, while the league's responses have not always satisfied those who expected stronger action. Whether one agrees with that assessment or not, the perception among many of her supporters is that she has frequently faced challenges that they feel have not been adequately addressed, contributing to growing frustration around how certain situations have been managed.
After tonight's game, I'm pissed, and I'm clearly not alone in my sentiments, but the league has a serious officiating issue, and the fact that the way that they treat their generational talent is truly disgusting. The calls tonight were insane. Or the no calls tonight were.
Many observers have argued that a league benefiting so significantly from the popularity of one player would be especially focused on ensuring her protection and fair treatment on the court, much like other professional sports leagues often do with their most recognizable stars. Instead, some fans and analysts feel the opposite has occurred at times, pointing to plays where they believe similar levels of contact against other top players would have resulted in immediate whistles, while Clark was expected to play through it. These perceptions have fueled ongoing debates about officiating consistency and player safety. As a result, when people ask why Clark may be reluctant to add extra commitments or promotional events to an already demanding schedule, many supporters believe the answer is fairly straightforward. They feel she has not always received the level of protection, support, or consideration that someone in her position might reasonably expect.
100% jealous of Caitlin Clark. You cannot sit here and look me straight in the eye and tell me that this girl, Caitlin Clark, who put your sport on the map, who pays your bills, who is your meal ticket, is the 11th best guard in the WNBA. You can't sit here and look at me in the eyes with a straight face and say she's the 11th best guard. This doesn't have anything to do with skill. This doesn't have anything to do with how she plays on the court. This has to do with they can't stand how much of an impact she has had on the WNBA. They can't stand that she has put their sport on the map and that she made their sport relevant. Yes, there's been plenty of other legends before her, but they never ever had the impact like she.
Critics argue that the issue extends beyond officiating and includes the ongoing public commentary surrounding Clark from some of her peers. Over the past few seasons, certain players have openly questioned or minimized her success in interviews, podcasts, and post-game discussions, suggesting that some of the attention she receives is the result of circumstances rather than her performance on the court. These remarks often spread quickly across social media, generating discussion about rivalries and controversy that can sometimes overshadow the basketball itself. Throughout much of that attention, Clark has generally chosen not to engage publicly, instead allowing her play and results to speak for themselves. Supporters point out that the league continues to benefit from the visibility she brings through sold-out arenas, strong television audiences, viral highlights, and increased fan interest. Because of that, some view the reported credential denial as particularly questionable, arguing that if it was connected to her decision not to participate in an additional event, it would appear to affect someone associated with her professionally rather than the decision-maker herself. Whether that interpretation is accurate remains a matter of debate, but it helps explain why the situation has generated such a strong reaction among many fans.
Voted her the 11th best guard. The media and the fans voted her like 2 and 3.
I think 11th is crazy, to be honest.
Candace Parker went on her podcast, Post Moves, and said,
"You got some insecurities if you sitting down and putting Caitlin Clark as the 11th best guard." Like, y'all need to go to a therapist.
There's a lot of things that come into play for All-Star, like fan voting is part of it. But if it only went by fan voting, that wouldn't be fair either, because it's not always the best players. But it's unfortunately also been like this for 3 years. Last year, I think they voted her like 9th best guard.
Why do you think the players have a resistance to voting her higher?
It might be part of that, like insecurities or jealousy. She comes into the W her rookie season. We need 4 sheets of paper to like see all the records that she broke. And so there's going to be animosity towards you. But at the same time, she's somebody who transformed this entire league, like brought in millions upon millions of eyeballs.
To be fair, the discussion is not really about whether Caitlin Clark chose to participate in the event. No player is obligated to take part in every competition simply because they are one of the league's biggest attractions. Athletes regularly make decisions about workload, recovery, and long-term health, especially during a demanding season when every additional activity can place more strain on the body. If Clark felt that skipping the three-point contest was the best choice for managing her energy and staying focused on the remainder of the season, that is a decision many professional athletes make and one that does not necessarily require further justification. The controversy, according to critics, was never about her declining the invitation itself. Instead, the concern stems from what reportedly occurred afterward, with some questioning whether subsequent actions were connected to that decision and whether those actions were handled fairly and consistently.
Pulled a no-show. Caitlin Clark's out in Iowa, having a good old time, not dealing with this nonsense, going to see, hair people and all of this stuff. She ain't got time to be dealing with these people no more. And I don't blame her. If I was Caitlin Clark, I wouldn't want to deal with these idiots any longer either. It's just been too much. Too much has been done. Too much has been done. Caitlin Clark pulled a absolute no-show. Here she is in Iowa. Okay. She said, I'm not going. I'll catch y'all. I'll catch y'all when I catch y'all. I might just show up. I might not show up to All-Star Weekend until 10 minutes before the game. I might not show up till 10 minutes before the game because y'all don't deserve the GOAT's presence with the way you guys have been acting.
What has fueled further debate is the lack of a detailed public explanation from league officials regarding why this particular photographer was reportedly denied access. Critics argue that, despite the attention surrounding the situation, no clear statement has been provided outlining the exact reason for the decision or the specific credentialing standard that was applied in this case. In previous controversies, league responses have often referenced internal reviews or standard procedures, but some observers feel those explanations can be too broad to fully address concerns. Meanwhile, Clark has largely avoided engaging in public disputes, continuing to attend team activities, fulfill media obligations, and focus on basketball rather than publicly challenging the league. Supporters view that restraint as professional, but they also argue that it allows the discussion to continue without direct answers from those responsible for the credentialing process. As a result, many believe it falls to reporters and media members to seek clarification on why this particular application was denied when other players, photographers, and content teams reportedly encountered no similar obstacles.
For Paige's senior year photo shoot, for Hopkins Paige, and they decide, you know what, we're not going to grant her credentials. We're not going to grant her credentials. And it's funny where there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people when it comes to this scenario that are like, could this be the reason why Caitlin Clark didn't compete in the three-point contest? Or could this be retaliation? Caitlin's not competing in the three-point contest. We're not going to grant her favorite photographer
Many observers argue that the situation appears unnecessary because Caitlin Clark's visibility and influence extend far beyond any single credentialing decision. She remains one of the most discussed athletes in professional basketball, and highlights from her games routinely spread across social media within minutes, whether they come from official broadcasts, media outlets, or fan coverage. From that perspective, denying access to one photographer is unlikely to reduce the attention surrounding her performances or diminish public interest in her career. Instead, critics contend that such a move risks creating a negative story that attracts even more scrutiny than the content it may have limited. They also point to the business side of the equation. Photos, videos, and behind-the-scenes content generated around major events often continue circulating for weeks, providing additional exposure for both the player and the league. Because of that, some question the logic of restricting access for a content creator who could help amplify interest in the event. If the decision was influenced by anything other than standard credentialing procedures, critics argue that it would ultimately do little to affect Clark while potentially reducing the amount of promotional content associated with the league itself.
All-Star Game. But first, like, follow, and subscribe for more Fever information as it becomes available. All right, let's snap into it, shall we? Well, Caitlin Clark, the first year she was a rookie. She didn't want to do it. Last year she was obviously hurt. And this year, what's going on? Must be that she's only shooting just north of 30% from behind the arc. The answer is emphatically wrong on that. That has nothing to do with it. And here's the thing. Sabrina Ionescu is not participating this year. Yes, she has participated in the past.
Many critics have compared this situation to the way other major sports leagues typically handle disagreements involving their most recognizable stars. In leagues such as the NBA, disputes related to media access, event participation, or player relations are often resolved privately and quickly, largely because both sides understand the value of maintaining a positive long-term relationship. By contrast, the continued lack of a clear public explanation in this case has allowed speculation to grow and the story to remain part of the broader sports conversation. Some observers believe that either the decision was a minor administrative matter that was poorly communicated, or that those involved underestimated how negatively it could be perceived once it became public. Looking at the bigger picture, critics argue that there is an apparent contradiction in heavily promoting a player as a central figure in the league's growth while creating the impression that her importance can be set aside whenever she makes a decision the league would have preferred she not make. Whether that perception is fair or not, supporters contend that strong relationships with high-profile athletes are built through trust, consistency, and mutual respect, and they warn that repeated controversies can gradually create unnecessary tension between a league and one of its most influential stars.
Caitlin Clark is the straw that stirs the WNBA drink. Any game that she plays in, her image should be used to sell the fact that the game is going on. Period. End of story. Just like Michael Jordan, just like LeBron, just like Kobe. This is not particularly complicated. The WNBA's refusal to acknowledge this is symptomatic of their woke mind virus and their identity politics. And they don't want, this is the truth, they don't want a white, heterosexual woman to be the face of the WNBA. And so they are desperately trying to find other people to be the face of the WNBA.
From the perspective of Clark's supporters,
if you have
the
a star,
situation can look particularly frustrating. They point to her role in attracting larger crowds, increasing television audiences, generating media attention, and helping bring new fans to the WNBA. At the same time, many of those supporters believe she has often faced intense physical play and criticism while receiving less protection or support than they feel a player of her stature should receive. Viewed through that lens, if a credential denial were connected in any way to her decision not to participate in an optional event, some would see it as especially unfair because the person affected was not the one who made the decision. Critics argue that actions perceived as punitive toward people in a player's professional circle can create the impression of unnecessary tension rather than cooperation. Whether that interpretation is accurate remains a matter of debate, But those who share it contend that successful long-term relationships between leagues and star athletes are usually built on mutual trust, clear communication, and respect rather than measures that can be perceived as attempts to exert pressure or control.
You stay quiet. You don't get the refs too much. You just hoop. You just hoop. You show them who you are. I know the injuries and stuff, and the media and all these people coming at you. It can get frustrating. You can hear the noise, but the great ones, they battle it out.
And
they
many believe
the
they
noise
contribute
and they
to
do
a
what they
broader
gotta
pattern
do
that has
and
shaped public perception around Clark over the past 2 years. Supporters argue that repeated controversies, whether related to officiating, media coverage, or league decisions, have reinforced their belief that she is sometimes treated differently from other high-profile players. From that viewpoint, denying access to a photographer hired specifically to document her experience shortly after she declined an invitation can appear less like a routine administrative decision and more like a message being sent. Critics contend that such optics are difficult to ignore, particularly when no detailed explanation is provided. At the same time, Clark supporters emphasize that participation in an optional event such as a three-point contest is ultimately the player's choice and not an obligation. They point out that she has consistently competed, handled intense scrutiny, and contributed significantly to the league's growing popularity. Whether the credential decision was related to her choice or not remains unproven, but many observers argue that if fans perceive a connection, the resulting criticism reflects concerns about league decision-making and communication rather than anything Clark herself did wrong.